You shouldn't have to opt out. They're using the content that you upload to Behance to train their AI models. It says right there. Hey, so I want to give you an update on the Adobe announcements, their clarification, their blog post, and I want to dig into it and take a look at what it means, well, what they're saying, what it actually means, and you know, what relevance it has. So first of all, like, why is this happening? Why was Adobe training AI on user content? Why are they trying to backpedal and say that they weren't when they were? And we have proof of it, and we can see it in the changes they're making, and I'm going to show you those changes now in this video. And would Adobe have even responded if someone hadn't brought this up, if this issue hadn't, you know, come to surface? I don't think they would have. I think they would have let everything just go on as they had intended, had other people, and myself included, not dug into the actual terms of service and what that meant. What triggered it for me was discovering that that checkbox in the preferences in Photoshop. You know, why are they doing this? And you know, the first thing that we need to do is go to the market. We can always just go to the market. If we take a look at their stock price over the last 6 months, we will see that it has, over 6 months, it's down 26%. 6 months to lose 26% of the company's value in a 6-month period is not good for the CEO. For sure, it's not good for the company. It's not good for the employees, but they need to do something, and they need to do it fast. And AI is the thing that they're banking on, because that is the primary competitor in the market, in the software market these days. And the reason I bring up the stock markets is because of wisdom of the crowds. The markets have a really good understanding of what's going on. Investors have a really good understanding of what's going on in the market and where companies are headed, and what they're doing to get there, and if that's going to improve or help their business at all. A 26% decrease in share value is significant. To put it into context, I think in 1989, when the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded, the stock price for Morton Thiokol, which was the company that made the O-rings, plummeted immediately after the event. The investigation hadn't even begun. The news was still showing clips, but the stock price for the company that was responsible for the tragedy plummeted. The stockbrokers and the people trading stocks knew who was responsible like a week before an official investigation had even begun. So when I see a stock price that has plummeted so significantly in 6 months, you know that the company is doing something. The things that it's doing are to, mitigate that fall in share price. Yeah, so Adobe updated its terms of service. It tried to do things quietly. It made the change in Photoshop, trying not to let anyone know. But then they got caught red-handed. People dug into the terms of service, and they really read about what was actually being done and with their work. I do think there were some misunderstandings. For example, at no point in any of the terms of service was Adobe saying that they own your content. They never said that they were going to copyright it. What people did not understand is that they were giving them a license to use their images in whatever way Adobe sees fit, but they were not giving them ownership of the images. So in the blog post, let's look at the clarification first. There's an update at the top of it because they've added another blog post. But one thing that they've said, if we go down here to the bottom, Adobe's continued commitments. Adobe does not train Firefly Gen AI models on customer content, except they were. They were, and they do. Now, if you click here on this link about their machine learning FAQ, and we look at this section here, how does Adobe analyze your content? What most people haven't yet figured out is that they consider your content public, and they will train on that public data when you are a contributor to Adobe stock and Behance. So if you are someone who contributed to Adobe stock, you've given them a license to use your work to train their AI model. But a lot of people don't understand that if they create projects on Behance, which for commercial photographers is a very kind of crucial and important platform, they're using the content that you upload to Behance to train their AI models. It says right there. It says right here, Adobe may analyze your content that is processed or stored on Adobe's server. We don't analyze contents processed or stored locally on your device. That's pretty clear. Then it says, when we analyze your content for product improvement and development purposes, we first aggregate your content with other content and then use the aggregated content to train our algorithms and thus improve our products and services. That includes Firefly. Firefly is a product and service that Adobe offers. They're not saying it doesn't include that, but it does say if you don't want Adobe to use your content for these purposes, you can opt out of content analysis at any time. And I've showed you in a previous video that I'll link to at the end exactly how to change that. In limited circumstances, they may manually review your content for product improvement and development purposes in the following situation. If you participate in pre-release beta or early access programs. So if you're using beta versions of Photoshop, then you are giving them permission to analyze your content. If you use Adobe Stock and Behance, you're giving them permission to analyze your content. It says in limited circumstances, but it doesn't say what those limited circumstances are. Then there's a section here right at the bottom that says, when does content analysis opt out not apply? This is a section. These are circumstances in which you cannot opt out of them using your content. Adobe Photoshop Improvement Program. This program allows you to submit the images you edit in Photoshop to help improve machine learning-based features. So it says turning off content analysis doesn't affect our ability to analyze your content when you participate in programs where you proactively submit content to develop and improve our products and services. So if you are using the product improvement, if you have product improvement checked in your Photoshop preferences, then you are not opting out of that. If you don't want the content to be used for such purposes, you should avoid participating in those programs. And they include, but are not limited to, the Photoshop Improvement Program, Adobe Stock, beta and pre-release versions of any products, and features which allow you to submit content as feedback. But in that case, that you're submitting the content. So today is June 12th. It's been about a week since all of this information blew up. When I got to my computer this morning, Creative Cloud was open on my computer. I didn't leave it open, but I guess it opened up, and, you know, because it sits in the background, but it opened up to let me know there was an update for Photoshop. So I recorded the version of Photoshop that I had on my computer this morning, and we look at the version number, and then we go to the preferences section. On Macs, that's going to be under Photoshop preferences. On Windows, it's under Edit Preferences. So you go to the preferences section, and you can clearly see that that box is there. I updated Photoshop to the 0.1 release version, this updated version that came out this morning. And now when you can see that I go to the version number, and then I go to the preferences, and now that button has been removed. Adobe saying that they don't train on customer content. They did. And they still do. They still do in those circumstances that I have already outlined, you know, through Behance. If you use an Adobe portfolio website, then Adobe can use your images that are on your website for content analysis. Adobe portfolio website is run through Behance. You set up the projects in Behance. You set up your portfolio sections in Behance. Get a real website. Don't use Adobe portfolio. You know, use something like Squarespace. I have videos on here about Squarespace. It's great for photographers. So yeah, Adobe, you know, were they lying? They did use customer content, and they still do use customer content, but they've just spelled out how it is. Now, a number of people have looked at last week's blog post, and they say, well, this is how they use it. Adobe has said how they use it and why they use it for. And they've provided a for example. They've said, for example, we would use it in these circumstances. Examples are not limitations. An example is one out of many possible uses. So that doesn't mean that just because they're saying, for example, child abuse material, for example, patterns of activity that indicate spam or phishing, that doesn't mean those are the only reasons that they are going to look at your content. Those are one or two reasons why they might look at your content. It doesn't eliminate all other reasons. Now, there was a blog post that came out just on Monday. I only saw it yesterday, so I don't know what time it came out on Monday. So we have a blog post released on Monday from Scott Belsky and Dana Rail. And it says, we recently rolled out a reacceptance of our terms of use, which has led to concerns about what these terms are and what they mean to our customers. This has caused us to reflect on the language we use in our terms and the opportunity we have to be clear and address the concerns raised by the community. Over the next few days, we'll speak to our customers with a plan to roll out updated changes by June 18th. So that is next Tuesday, and I will provide you with an update at that time as well. So it says here at Adobe, there's no ambiguity in our stance, our commitment to our customers, and innovating responsibly in this space. We've never trained generative AI on customer content, taken ownership of a customer's work, or allowed access to customer content beyond legal requirements. So I really don't, I just can't see how they've never trained generative AI on customer content when there are clearly options within Photoshop to allow them to do so. It says, nor were we considering any of these practices as part of recent terms of use update. That said, we agree that evolving our terms of use to reflect our commitments to our community is the right thing to do. You own your own content. Yes, of course, that wasn't an issue. We don't train generative AI on customer content, except when we do. We're adding this statement to our terms of use to reassure people that is a legal obligation on Adobe. Adobe Firefly is only trained on a data set of, so here's the part that I'm skeptical about. It says Adobe Firefly is only trained on a data set of licensed content with permission, such as, not limited to, but such as Adobe stock and public domain content where copyright has expired. Here's the issue. By checking that box in Photoshop, you are opting in and licensing your content to Adobe, or to be more accurate, where you have not opted out. This should be opt-in only. You shouldn't have to opt out of it. The fact that I had to opt out of both things, that's the annoyance for me. It says you have a choice not to participate in our product improvement program. Yes, you do. It says we may use usage data and content characteristics to improve your product experience and develop features like masking and background removal, among others, through techniques including machine learning, not generative AI. You always have the option of opting out of our desktop product improvement programs. So what they're saying is that they will use your content to train their AI. They just won't use it in generative AI. And I just don't believe them. I don't believe them. Like everything is Firefly. How do I know that? Like, you're using Firefly for generative fill, or you're using machine learning for content aware and removing people and characteristics from Photoshop, from images, but it's not generative AI? What is the separation? We need to know the separation. Because right now I don't trust you, and I'm just not going to participate in those programs. The licenses we require to operate and improve our products on your behalf should be narrowly tailored to the activities needed. Yes, 100%. Yes, the licenses required to operate our products on your behalf use the standard statutory copyright rights, but will now include plain English examples of what they mean and why they are required. We will also separate out and further limit the licenses required to improve our products and emphasize the opt-out option. We will reiterate that in no case do these license grants transfer ownership of your content to Adobe. Again, they're saying emphasize the opt-out option. It shouldn't be an option to opt out. It should be an option to opt in. You shouldn't have to opt out. They're putting you in a position. They're putting us in a position where it's upon us to say no, instead of upon them to ask us yes. We shouldn't have to opt out. It shouldn't be our responsibility. It's their responsibility. Adobe does not scan content stored locally on your computer in any way. Yeah, I didn't think they did. It's the stuff going into the cloud that is an issue. It's the fact that there was a setting in Photoshop that allowed them to use your work to train their AIs, but it wasn't clear what that is. I'm looking forward to the updated terms of service. Would they be updating their terms of service if there hadn't been this hullabaloo? Probably not. Probably not. That's what corporations do. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think. Right now, I have very little trust in Adobe, but I am doing everything that I need to ensure that they are not using my work to train their AI. I'll keep you posted. In the meantime, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications so you'll get the update when I release the next video.